SecurePod.
SecurePod.
Welcome to SecurePod by SecureFlag. In this podcast series, we speak with a variety of guests, all of whom have been involved in some way, shape or form in affecting cybersecurity culture change within their organization. Whether it's about building secure development and engineering skills, democratizing threat modeling as a standard practice in the SDLC, creating elite squads of security champions to rally colleagues across the organization, or even creating policy frameworks to enhance cyber skills and awareness across an entire continent, we know you walk away with some useful insight. SecurePod is hosted by me, Nick Kelly, production is by Alessandro Longo, and sound by Adrian Hellenberg. In this SecurePod episode, I was joined by Bonnie Byer-Viteri, who was, until very recently, a key member in Yahoo's product security team and its security champions lead. Bonnie offered some fantastic insight into how understanding human behavior has been pivotal in fostering security awareness and influencing organizational change. Bottom line, it isn't just about the technology, it's about changing mindset and behaviors, and Bonnie and her team were able to create a security culture that actually encouraged proactive involvement and curiosity among employees, transforming some of them into security champions. During the episode, she described the importance of tailoring communication to resonate with executive priorities and using metrics to speak their language, such as demonstrating the return on investment and value provided by security initiatives. This was a really good conversation, and before we get stuck into it, if you enjoy the episode, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And without any further ado, on with the show. Welcome to the SecurePod podcast. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Bonnie Byer-Viteri. She works in product security at Yahoo, and we've been conversing over email for quite a while now and finally had the chance to meet virtually. We had a quick chat before this podcast about the different topics that we'd talk about, travel and other joys. And this should be a very fun episode and enlightening for those of you who are interested, as you likely are, since you're listening to this podcast in the first place, about implementing and building security culture and implementing security programs in organizations, what works, what doesn't, and all the bits and pieces that help you in your quest to securing your organization. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Bonnie. Thank you for joining.
Hi, thanks, Nick. Wonderful to finally meet you and absolutely lovely to get this conversation going. So I'm excited. I'm Bonnie Byer-Viteri. As Nick had said, we've been chatting over line and we're hoping to meet in person. Since that didn't work, we decided to do this podcast, which is even better.
Add to the sea of podcasts. This one will stand out. I am certain of it.
I hope so. I am on the product security team at Yahoo. I've been at Yahoo now 8 years. I actually started on what we had called security awareness, which I think most companies have security awareness at their company, with technical security, annual security training, even diving into some role-based security training and securing the perimeter, and then moved over into product security to run our Security Champions program, which is where we actually would have embed security into every product through developers within those product security teams. That is where I currently stand and happy to share the knowledge that I have for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I guess the big question that I would have is, did you move into that role and there was already a Security Champions program running, or was that kind of a greenfields opportunity to build something across the organization? Because that is a big challenge.
Yeah, that is a huge challenge. Actually, our Security Champions program had sat dormant for a little while. People get promoted and the cycle continues to go on, and you need to find that lead that's passionate and really excited to be there and run it and that's going to scale it. So our greenfields had been many, many years ago, and the program obviously went through its cycles. And so what we were trying to accomplish was bringing the program back to life and then scaling it company-wide. And we had some trials and errors and some ideas behind it. And at the end of the day, we were able to accomplish that and hand that program off that's now being ran very smoothly. I'm on to my next challenge, next program build, but that one is always going to be near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. I guess the fact that you actually had something there to work with, albeit having been dormant for quite some time, would be useful. What was the initial intention of it? Was it more about a security awareness with less of a technical spin to it? Or was it the whole kit and caboodle where you had a focus on developer training and working between technical and non-technical teams and communication amongst them? What was the kind of format initially planned, and what did you do to re-energize and build it? And what was the hierarchical structure of that?
I guess I'll have to rewind fast to the security culture at Yahoo as a whole. When we first started as security awareness with just the technical annual and role based security trainings, we
Mhm.
realized that changing behavior was a huge thing. People didn't want to do the wrong thing. They didn't wake up every morning and say, I want to be insecure. They wanted to know how to be secure. So we really changed our way of thinking when it came to security culture at Yahoo into more of a behavioral change management application. And so I carried that over with me too when we were running our security champions program. And like we were saying, we had developers that were interested. Our leadership had kind of known about it. We'd had some turnover there as well. And so the first thing was really just to get a baseline of where we were and then start at the initiation phase, really back to that green roots, like making sure everybody knew what the program was. There was proper documentation in Confluence that if someone wanted to become a champion, they knew where to go to look. That leadership, if they had questions, they knew who to go and ask questions to. It started off with just a marketing campaign of, hey, we know that you guys are currently champions. What made you want to be in this program? What made
Mm,
you want to be that bridge builder between security and the product at Yahoo? And really understanding what drove the people that were currently in the program and then how we could utilize their drive to
mm.
initiate larger growth and scale.
Did you have, say, behavioral psychologists or anyone with that kind of background who were advising?
Yeah, I wasn't really what you would call a proper security engineer when I got started
Mm,
into this field. I'm what you would consider non-technical security engineer, essentially. I
mm,
have grown leaps and bounds since then. I'm considered extremely technical now. But my background was in behavioral psychology with a master's in criminology. 7, 8 years ago, that was unheard of.
mm,
And the leadership at the time actually saw a need and a possibility to where we could help bridge that gap from non technical to technical in the industry. And
mm.
I have to give it all to leadership at the time that saw that opportunity to pull in folks like me and how much I grew. And I think security grew as well.
Do you think that talent scouting internally with your background is unique to Yahoo, or has that been a trend that you've seen in other organizations when you've spoken with other individuals who are in similar roles that you've had?
8, 9 years ago, that was not the trend at all. I was definitely a unicorn in the industry. There were very few non technical folks that I had had the privilege of speaking to.
Mm,
Since then, conference attending and speaking engagements and the educational opportunities that Yahoo provided me, I've actually noticed an upward swing in folks that are more business oriented, maybe have an MBA instead of a security background, definitely more psychological. They have that behavior aspect, even change management. I've seen a lot of
mm,
folks bridge into that area. So it's really great to see that the talent, it isn't just that niche anymore. Everybody's welcome to the secure world, right? So
mm, mm.
how can we all do better together?
What would you say makes an exceptional security champion? What are the kind of elements in the person?
Obviously, just an interest in security. You want them to start to ask those questions about, well, what could go wrong? I've been
Mm,
doing these product builds for years and reading about these breaches. I watch my annual security training every year, and you've got me intrigued. Now tell me what else could go wrong. And I love it
mm,
when they ask that. It's a loaded question on their part, but it's that interest of, hey, I want to know how can I build more securely? How can my team build more securely? And
yeah.
now I've got this community that I can go and work with and I can learn those things from. That's really the first thing that I looked for in a security champion, but also someone who has their pulse on the day to day of their builds, who knows how their team runs, and the tech stack is definitely a plus if they understand that. Those would be the people I would pick out.
Would you say, generally speaking, the security champion is going to be someone senior, or have you seen some quick individuals who are new, fresh to the industry, fresh to the organization, maybe juniors who are taking up the mantle pretty quickly?
Interestingly enough, as we grew our program and as I started to see different backgrounds come in and different levels of appetite as we grew and expanded, and leadership saw, like, hey, I need a security champion, and they might not have had one at the time. And they
Mm,
might have nominated somebody that wasn't the first person to raise their hand, but they said, hey, we need one. Do you mind picking up the slack? As they started participating more in the program and becoming more engaged, we had very senior level folk, principal,
mm,
senior principal, a couple of distinguished engineers in there,
mm,
product engineers that would come in, not just the developers, that would bring a whole new lens. And then we really knew our program had taken off when those folks, as they got promoted and they realized they didn't have the bandwidth any longer, they would say, hey, I still want to be a part of the program. I want to come to the community meetups, but I don't necessarily have the time to do all of the small little nuts and bolts to get it out there to the rest of the team. But
mhm.
hey, I've got somebody I want to backfill myself with.
Okay.
And when they started coming to us with backfills, that's when we knew our program had a foothold because they knew it was important and they knew this guy or this girl is going to be really interested in taking this up. Passion.
Yeah, and I guess the type of individual who's very enthusiastic in that sense is, maybe I'm generalizing, but likely is the type of person who would be also interested in identifying other people to take up the mantle and then really pushing that and mentoring as well. Can you give us a sense of, after, you took the security champions under your wing and then you built it, what did it look like? If you're an internal person, you would get a newsletter or you would be informed by the security champions team or the team lead that you can join this program. Then you're incentivized, and then that offers training. You can get a number of hours per month. How did it look?
Coming from that awareness and training background and then the behavioral, I tried to automate and on demand as much as I could. A lot of programs out there only have a single lead, and a lot of the times those are only there for 50% of the time. So you're adding a program build on top of your already everyday, day to day security work. Essentially, we took a lot of those trainings. The first one we built was what we called Paranoid University. And it was really that top 10 OWASP. We set the very standard, like at least verbiage and terminology for security and what was important. And
Hmm.
then we added on certain things that were specific to Yahoo, right? So, what's our open source training? What's our security for Yahoo Cloud? So, as we
Hmm.
migrate to the cloud, what's our security recommendations for that? And we turned those into just on demand trainings that we dropped into our success factors, which is, your source of
Hmm.
truth for company training. That's always the
Hmm.
place you want to align with. You don't want to start creating something new that they've got to learn. And then we really built out that Confluence page where when somebody said, "Hey, I want to know where to go to become we called them deputy paranoids."
Oh, I like that.
We deputized our security paranoids. And somebody asked, they would go there and then they would take an on demand endorsement. And then it would immediately ping me in an email and say, "Hey, we have a new person to be onboarded." That's when I would connect with them and onboard them. And I would typically try to batch those out bi-weekly or so.
I really like that kind of mechanism. You mentioned that you've switched more to the product security side, but this Security Champions program was your darling project. Do you still have interactions with the team, or do you still give them advice?
Absolutely. So we have our community meetups. We do those bi-weekly. That was part of our foundational planning. We have what we called an executive steering committee, which I'm a part of. The new lead, his name is Gene Shen. He's absolutely fantastic. He
Mm.
really spun up fast. Him and I had worked together on behavioral engineering prior, so we had a little background there.
Ah, nice.
So when the reorg happened and they asked me to concentrate on value proposition, and I spent some time with him and handed it off, I still go to the community meetups as much as I can.
Mm,
Deputies will reach out if they have any questions on something new that I might be working on or they might be working on. But for the most part, like the paranoids as a whole, the security team as a whole is extremely active with our
mm,
deputies. We have from every team come in and talk. We really start to build that collaboration. So those
mm,
long-term partnerships with security to where you don't have to come to Bonnie every time or Gene every time. You can go to any paranoid if you know or exactly what you're looking for and you know they have the answer. We don't want to be
mm.
blockers. We're here to assist to bridge that gap between security and the business.
Now that we've listed a lot of the successes, can you think of any of the challenges that you faced or any obstacles that you needed to overcome initially?
Yeah, I mean, always there's that leadership buy-in,
Takes time.
asking them yeah, if they're well, we're asking them to give 20% of their time, right? And
Yeah.
so one of the things that I really noticed was they don't always have 20% of the time. They have
Mm,
their jobs, they have their sprints, they have their sprint planning. One way to overcome that was we started thinking about quarterly tasks, like
mhm,
what's happening at Yahoo as a whole that is a security thing that we are concerned about, and how can we use our deputies not to do the work but to bridge and educate their team on the secure work that needs to be implemented into their builds. Like, how do we
mhm,
do that? And so we started using Jira in our Kanban boards, and we would think up a quarterly security task and we would send it out to all the deputies. And again, it might be like onboarding repos to get or something along those lines. And
mm,
again, we're not asking them to do all the work. We're just asking them to share it with their team and their stand ups to their leadership and assist them in that conversation. We're giving them back and educating them on how to have those leadership conversations, but we're also getting that security need that we
mm,
need. So it's what do they get out of it and always give, give, give more than we ask for. And that's how we overcame it. But the leadership buy in is always going to be a question. And the best way to respond is we understand that they can't give 20% all the time. We'll take
mm.
what we can get.
From our side, Secure Flag backs this podcast, and we have a lot of conversations about working with customers to gain that executive buy-in. And typically, it leads to a question of return on investment. And I guess many of us who are paranoids, whether official paranoids or not, or paranoid peers, we completely get it. That being able to furnish those types of metrics and say you can actually measure the success based on for argument's sake, a reduction in vulnerabilities entering the environment being assigned as tickets in Jira to a particular developer, a reduction in the average time to fix vulnerabilities. And when you actually see those reductions in your actual environment as a result from some of these programs, whether they're security champion led programs or general training programs or general awareness programs, it's a much more convincing argument to get that leadership buy-in, and then it is self-perpetuating. Something else that we focused on was working with extremely easy to use and frictionless types of additions to or directions to relevant information. And it's an overused terminology, but just in time. And it is very useful and descriptive set of words there, because let's say, for example, in Jira, there's a customer that we actually work with that implemented one of our integrations for something called Threat Canvas, which is a threat modeling automation tool. And basically, in their Confluent, the official developer workflow, every single developer, as part of their process when they receive a feature, they need to click on a button which leads them to create a threat model first, which has a list of the assumptions about threats and controls. Any threats that have been identified in that threat model relevant to the feature that they're building that they haven't done a certification on in the last 12 months, they will need to run a training lab prior to actually committing any code. I won't say it's an extreme case, because it's certainly a trend that we're seeing. It's a trend that people are heading towards. It's not something you would do from day one. You'd have developer
Mhm.
mutiny on your hands. However, once you have a program up and running, people are familiar with it. Here's a process where basically you have a threat model, you've saved it to the Jira ticket, you notice that you've done 6 of the 7 certifications. There's one vulnerability that you haven't brushed up on in the last 12 months. You spend 20 minutes doing a training lab, and then you're good to go. And that is making it so it is part of that sprint without making it feel like it's training. And that
Mhm.
speaks to a behavioral shift and a perception shift about what training is. You can also sit that into the sort of broader categorization of security champ and championing these types of considerations,
Yeah.
making them easy, making them part of your flow, and making them useful as well.
And here's the other side to that flip coin, right? I'd love to see the metrics and data on all of that. Was this an effective approach? Did what
Yeah.
we do actually make a difference? We use simple looker dashboards to see if it had been adopted, our adoption efforts. We did a model
Mm,
case study with our champions where we did a value proof of concept basically to see, was what we were asking them to do actually effective in making things more secure. And what we found in the end goal was it was making things more secure, but it was also showing that our deputies were becoming influencers across their
mm,
teams. They were no longer doing the work, they were influencing the work that was being done securely. We would send that out, and it was amazing to see. So it then goes into those, well, what metrics are important, right, Nick? And how
mm.
do we show those to our executives to get that buy in? Just curious how you guys did that.
Let's say you assign security tickets that have risen in Jira, and you're certainly an organization of scale. To give you a sense, the two co founders, former JP Morgan, JP Morgan has a lot of developers. We're talking 50,000 developers, more or less, maybe more, depending on projects. The volume of security tickets coming in is large. The size of the application security team is dwarfed by the number of developers. And not just the security tickets themselves that are assigned to developers, but also the time it takes for the developer in question. Let's say it's Nick who needs to remediate this particular vulnerability. Am I doing that correctly, first of all? And if I'm not, what are the steps and what are the number of times it's passed back and forth in QA before it's pushed as a proper fix? How much time has elapsed? And factoring in various other external impacts, introductions of different tools like SaaS tools and what have you. The way we actually measured it was we worked with teams that were using a training platform and the different things that we deploy versus teams that weren't, and then looked at the reductions in vulnerability tickets, average time to fix vulnerabilities. So how long a ticket has been open, assigned, open, and then closed. And also, as an overarching concept, then the reduction of overall security rework. So taking into account those back and forths in QA process. And that gives you a good estimation based on several data points of the number of hours that have been attributed to security rework, which are not unproductive hours. And they could be hours that would be directed to innovation or product generating type of work. And that is the argument that really holds sway with executives, certainly the less technical ones, because at the end of the day, it is one piece of an organization. And depending on the organization, most organizations want to be focusing on things that generate revenue. And so making that argument, I think, has been a key thing that we've seen as it's made much easier when you can actually point to number of hours saved. Sorry?
Developer productivity is what
Developer
is what
productivity.
that we're is the matrices that we're calling it, is developer productivity. That's actually the new project that I was asked to, when I handed off the deputies, is to the value proposition is to show value
Oh,
for
so
security
that's what you're
activities.
working on right now. Ah,
It
there you
is,
go.
yes. I was a little nervous at first, but I'm digging deep. I'm just a big research nerd at heart, right? So
Yeah.
aren't we all?
Absolutely. And innovating in this space and making things that they don't feel like they're adding extra pressure or work. They're useful for someone so that how they're working is actually empowered by it and it's having a benefit from a security standpoint. Those are the ingredients that you want. So the efficiency comes into it once. It might be a daunting task if you get 10 training labs to complete before you actually work on a feature. That would be daunting. And you would say, that is a deal breaker for me. I have a lot of resistance towards that. But also understanding that if you implement these things in the right way at the right point in the developer workflow, it actually has a huge benefit. And it means you won't have someone breathing down your neck saying, why am I getting this as a QA about 4 or 5 times?
I love it when I talk to people like you. And it always makes me think like, if you were going to start a new company and it was going to be a startup and you did
Mm,
all of this from the very beginning, like how secure would that product be? So
yeah.
I'm always fascinated to think that way of like, let's just start from secure.
Start
Yeah.
from the beginning. What a lovely hypothetical world that would be. Now you're working in product security, you've stepped away. Are there any additional points that you're working on that you'd like to highlight and any new challenges on the horizon that might be interesting?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we realized with digital transformation, we want to make sure we're supporting the business. It's no longer just security. You need to be able to support the business and like
Mm,
their needs. And so that's really where this value proposition idea came in is can we show value for security activities in a monetary way that really
mm,
speaks to the business and says, security isn't just a cost center any longer. We are
mm,
actually providing monetary value to the business based in X, Y, and Z. As I deep dove into the industry, what myself and my two colleagues that I'm working with found is that this hasn't been tackled in the
mm.
industry. It's been kind of attempted, but nobody's really gotten there. Netflix tried it. Their formulas to me were very difficult to follow, Lambda formulas. But what is like some easy way? And that's where we came in with developer productivity and return on security investments, one that's been out there for a while, but
Mm.
also value risk. We're digging deep into those metrics and we're going to look at maybe some mathematicians and just see where we can go with all this and show
That's
that value.
Are you looking at that only within Yahoo, or are you actually collaborating with other industry peers as well?
At the moment, we're looking at Yahoo specific, but we have collaborated with industry peers. We're not fit in a corner in any means or facet. And that's where we really found out with that collaboration with other industry leaders that it hasn't been tackled in the industry.
Mm,
And so if we can, at least get some pretty simple baseline metrics that can show that value and share them out where other people can start using them,
mm.
I think that's really where we like to live is cutting edge on that leadership.
Wow, I think that's a great place to end it. Fascinating conversation. I will certainly be following up closely about your progress there because that's kind of the gold mine, isn't it? If you can actually draw that nice connection there, and especially if it hasn't been explored thoroughly up until now, that's very, very exciting. So, Bonnie, thank you so much for your time. Any last comments before we finalize this?
It's been absolutely lovely. Thanks for having me, Nick.
My pleasure. And looking forward to hopefully meeting up somewhere in the world someday soon.
Absolutely.
SecurePod. 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 SecurePod.